My little shop is pretty well equipped for a little hobbyist shop, but recently I've been thinking I want to up my fabrication game in order to take these overland projects to the next level. And one tool that I think I need in order to do that is a plasma cutter. This is the Harbor Freight Titanium Plasma 65 plasma cutter, and yes, today I have a new toy and you get to watch me play with it. Now bear with me, it's not going to cut perfect at first because I'm learning the techniques and sort of dialing in the settings. You're watching the first time I've ever pulled the trigger on any plasma cutter before. So stick around, hopefully this one's helpful for you. If you've been considering buying a plasma cutter and you've been wondering if you should go with a budget option like the Titanium Plasma 65, or should you spend the big money on one of the brand name machines, stick around. By the end of this video, you'll have an idea of what's best for you. Let's try turning down our pressure just a tad. I'm going to give it a shot with a little bit less amperage, see what happens. Not enough. Okay, 55 amps it is. Oh yeah. Looks like so far 55 amps, 100 psi. At least for 1/4 inch steel. Now 1/4 inch is what we're going to be working with the Land Cruiser, so I might just leave these settings right here. This is a cool experiment. Let's actually try to cut a bracket and see what happens. Now guys, one thing that I've noticed in the, not in the instruction manual, really it's on top of the actual plasma cutter itself. It has some sort of settings for if you go with this many amps and you're cutting for this many minutes, you got to let the plasma cutter rest for this many minutes. It plays into that thermal overload thing. So you don't want your plasma cutter to get too hot. You want to let it rest for a little bit. Say, I think it's 6 minutes of cutting at 55 amps is 4 minutes of rest, something like that. So this actually works out well. I'm going to get everything ready to actually cut out a real bracket. And meanwhile, our plasma cutter will sit over there and hang out for a little bit. Let's see. We can cut something like this. brackets. Now, I know you might be laughing at this one. This looks kind of like Wisconsin. It doesn't look all straight, and I don't want to call this one pretty, but at least it's straight and has rounded edges. So my initial impressions, just after trying to cut something small like that, that's 1/4 inch steel, the new bracket. I think if you're going to go, at least if you're of my skill level, I think if you're going to cut something small like that, I think your best bet, if you're trying to go for a precise, pretty shape, I think your best bet is to cut out the general shape a little bit bigger than what you're trying to cut, and then go for a bench grinder or something like that to round off those edges and make it closer to what you're actually expecting. I think doing it straight by hand is a lost cause, at least unless you're a very experienced person who has a little bit more skill than I do. I can't even draw. So, but as far as this way goes, I know it looks rough when it comes out. Bench grinder, I think this thing would look absolutely perfect, and it would be a great bracket to weld together and stick on our axle. So overall, I'm pleased with it. I just don't think you should be expecting perfect, precise CNC table-like results. I know that these plasma cutters do produce very straight, clean edges when they're on a CNC table, but that's a robot, and I'm a clumsy person, and I can't do all that. So for me, I'm not even going to come close to making something as precise as a CNC table. It's going to come out a little messy, but if you're trying to just hack something off that's a big piece of steel that you would go through 1,000 cutting wheels with, this plasma cutter is excellent. I have it nowhere near peak power, and I have a lot more air power to go as well. And I don't even come close to needing it. It blasted through this 1/4 inch steel. And I mean, if you look at these brackets, we're going to get a lot of strength out of this. It's a good bit thicker than the factory stuff. So as far as I'm concerned, I mean, look at the difference right there. If you can see, that's going to be a good bit of added strength, brand new steel, healthy steel. And this plasma cutter is going to be very helpful for that. Now, I kind of expected more precise results, but that's not the fault of the Titanium Plasma 65. I suspect that any plasma cutter is going to be that way. It can't make me not a doofus. So I can draw the best I can with my plasma cutter, but at the end of the day, I think I'm going to need a bench grinder to really round off those edges and make these brackets beautiful. So let's cut something else. Straight enough. Ow! Ow! Not good at this. The plasma cutter has done pretty well with 1/4 inch steel at 55 amps, but there's still some times when I have to sort of nick the edges. I have to go around one more time to get it to actually cut all the way out. So let's go to 65 amps. If we've got it, we're going to use it. Let's go full power and see if we can get a little bit better results cutting 1/4 inch steel, where we can get maybe a cleaner pass. Maybe we can get rid of those bumpy edges if it's really max power. Let's try it. Maximum power. Woo! day different. Try this again. Definitely not bad. Drill press punch right through that hole. Pretty good match. Come on, that's pretty good. That's well within bench grinder cleanup territory. Clean up those edges, make them rounded off, punch a hole through that. There's your bracket. Well, as with so many things, it appears the answer is full power. This bracket, that's pretty good. I mean, that's pretty darn close. Obviously, like I said, the straight edges and whatnot, but as far as close to the right shape, minimizing the time you need to spend on the bench grinder. Once you get a drill press, I have a bench grinder right there I just bought. We can clean that up and make that look really close to that. So I am very happy with that. That's bumping the power up. That's 65 amps, 100 PSI on the air compressor. So this is great. I definitely recommend, if you're gonna go with this, you're doing 1/4" steel, take back everything I've already said. You wanna go full power, 65 amps, 100 PSI, and you're gonna get something that is as steady as you can possibly be. So I'm happy with that. Now, hopefully this one interests some folks. This is a much thinner piece of sheet metal. I don't remember what gauge this is, but this is roughly what you would find vehicle body panel thickness. So, seems like it's going to be easy work. If anything, my main concern will be overdoing it and having a lot of slag and stuff. At least I think that's a side effect. Experienced guys, go ahead. Okay, attempt 1. This is 30 amps on the machine. Let's see what happens here. Be interested to see if this cuts anything like the thicker metal or if we're going to experience something totally new. Wow. If anything, this seems much more precise than it is with the bigger metals. All right, enough games, enough practice, enough cutting out hearts. Let's chop these brackets off. Wow. We've seen what happens whenever we cut through clean metal plate on our vise. We've seen what happens when we cut through a bracket on our axle that was actually pretty cleaned off. But what about a bracket that's really rusty? It's pretty thick. There's still some healthy metal in there, but I wonder what happens when a plasma cutter tries to blast through rust. I'm guessing it's gonna cut right through it, but let's see. Oh yeah. Whoa. Ow. Interesting. Well, it seems like guys who are real familiar with the plasma cutter, let me know, but seems like it doesn't like rusty metal, which makes sense. You have to ground it and it's not getting a good ground. Just like welding, you can't weld rusty metal well. So yeah, it just seems like it doesn't have all that much fun trying to blast through rust. It did get through most of it, but it does seem a little bit confused by the really rusty stuff, which is fine. I don't want to make this axle super duper hot. I don't want to pump too much heat into it, but that's an interesting test result for you. Blows right through the good clean metal. Rusty metal, not so much. I mean, it'll do it, but not cleanly and not thoroughly like it does with clean metal. There you have it. That's the Harbor Freight Titanium Plasma 65 plasma cutter. We tested it in a couple different ways. We tested it on cleaned off metal plate, a real world use on the brackets on our axle, the cleaned off bracket. Then we tried it against some rusty metal, the rusty bracket on the axle. And I planned on doing a normal 110, 120 volt outlet, but this one, as you can see, has that sort of sideways prong. I don't have any outlets in here that have that, so won't be able to test it like that. I know that's probably what most people have available is 110, 120, a normal household outlet, but just know you're gonna need that sideways sort of prong there. So anyway, on 240, how did it do? It did really well. I think that most of the things that could be considered negative or it didn't cut all the way through and those things, I think that was mostly user error. I think I hover a little bit too far away sometimes. And getting used to this thing, I was getting better as I was going on, cutting more cleanly and thoroughly. So really, I definitely would recommend this plasma cutter. Plasma cutters that are really from proven brands that are very effective and known to be really effective, they're great, but they're really, really expensive, way out of the ballpark of this thing in price. And I think this is a great option. I think on clean metal, it does great. No question about it. 1/4 inch steel doesn't stand a chance, blows right through it. I think on the cleaned off bracket on the axle, same thing, blasted right through it, just fell right off. Rusty metal, I think this is probably true of any plasma cutter, but it couldn't ground, so it didn't really blast through the rust like I thought it would. And I think for those type of things, you'll need to clean it up really well before you go trying to plasma cut right through rust. I don't think it's going to work all that well. But overall, fantastically useful, great value for money, and I really recommend it. I'm going to keep using it, and it's going to be a fantastic tool for the rest of the Endless Land Cruiser project. Thank you for watching. Thanks for visiting the Forge. See you next time. I almost forgot. Stick with me. I have a third imported four-wheel drive vehicle. I swear it's the last one for now, but it actually sits right behind this shop wall, and it is insane. Stick around for my third imported four-wheel drive. It's the biggest project of the bunch, and once the Land Cruiser suspension and rust is taken care of, my third four-wheel drive is going to be in this shop, and we're going to perform some major surgery on that thing, engine swap, prep for overlanding. It's going to be amazing. Stick with me. It's only going to get better from here.